to the latest episode of Can I Kick It?
Yes, you can. Sneak that in there.
So, let me introduce ourselves first. I'm going to go into the story later. As always, this is your host, Elliot Barr, and as joined as always my good man,
Shania Duran II.
So, yesterday, Greg, For the Culture, hit us up for our interview. So, he was like, it was pretty much based around, Can I Kick It? Mm-hmm. So, when I said the show name, he was like, yes, you can. And I was just like, yo, I swear, every time that it comes up and someone does it, I have to stop myself from laughing. Because it really reminds me of Shania. I have to stop myself from laughing. By the way, check out that For the Culture podcast. I think it should be dropping very soon. We'll tweet it out to everyone so you can listen to it. But we got some sad news, man. It's our last episode for a little bit.
Yeah, it's gonna be
kind of sad.
USL League One is coming back.
Even though we still don't have a schedule.
No, we have one game that we know when it's going to be, and that's it. So the rest of the schedule, they're apparently still working on it.
USL League One treats this schedule drop as like your work schedule. Like you get it like every 2 weeks. Like here you go, you work this week. This is how many days you work. Like here you go. You can go from working 4 days a week to 1.
Exactly.
Never know. You never know with USL League One. But yeah, we're not saying that this is the last episode ever of Can I Kick It? It's not that. We're just juggling 2 podcasts. We're not used to it yet, so we're trying to work things both back out. We probably will drop an episode in between the season, but we're just slowing it down for a little bit. Doesn't mean stopping. We're just slowing it down for a little bit. But yeah, today's episode, man, I truly cannot wait to get into it. Because this one was recommended to us a lot on Twitter. And it's someone that, I think Black Arrow, they've done a video on him. Star Trek FC has done an article on him. It's Mr. Gil Heron. Or, as his mama named him, Gilbert St. Elmo Heron. If that ain't a black name. Woo! Imagine your mama saying that when you forgot to do the dishes and took the meat out the refrigerator.
Oh, you got to just run for it. Because you know the slipper's coming.
You know it's coming, dog.
Yes.
Gilbert! Yo, first of all, what was your first initial thoughts about, like, his backstory and who he was as a player?
My initial thought was, because of the fact that it was so long ago, and because of the fact that he started out in the U.S. in a very ambiguous time in U.S. soccer, there's not a lot of information about. I mean, you can barely find any stats. He played in Detroit for a while, and then.
So I did find out about his time in Detroit. I know he scored a hat trick on his first game for the Detroit
debut,
yeah, for the Detroit
Corinthians.
Yes. Which, by the way, is a very weird name. Like, I don't know. I don't think U.S. has got it better with naming teams.
No, they've just been naming teams based off of other teams. Because, Corinthians in Brazil. Yeah,
so this is who he played for. He played for Detroit Ventetta, Detroit Wolverines, Chicago Maroons, Chicago Sparta, Detroit Corinthians, went to Celtic. We're going to definitely get into that.
Yes.
Third, Lanark, which is in Celtic, which is no longer around because they dissolved in 1967. Mm-hmm. Kidderminster Heritors, which is a club in England, came back, played a little bit for the Detroit Corinthians, and then Winchester Corinthians. So either he really liked the Corinthians, or he was just like, I gotta play in Detroit or Chicago.
Hey, he was probably just, his probably family in the Midwest, northern Midwest.
Yeah, he came from Jamaica, born in Kingston and everything.
Yeah.
All right. So, he was born in Kingston, Jamaica. Shout out to Jamaica, the motherland.
Yeah.
Born in Jamaica, moved up to Canada. While he was in Canada, by the way, he joined the Royal Canadian Air Force. Him and a couple of his brothers. So they kind of fought in World War II. I couldn't really find out, like, what was his exact job within it, but He was a part of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Then he started getting involved in soccer. So there was an Ebony article that pretty much dubbed him the Babe Ruth of soccer around this time because, and I never knew this, he was the only black person playing soccer around this time period. It wasn't like it was a whole bunch of other things, and it's even harder to really understand like American soccer during this time period, like you was alluding to about how there's not a lot. There's not a lot.
No, not really. I mean, around this time, you had leagues popping up and dying out within 1 or 2 years. You had a lot of the soccer was amateur, and it's like there wasn't a lot of information. Most games were not. I mean, games weren't televised in the 50s. So, I mean, apart from maybe World Cup games, which are not U.S. League games.
During that time.
Yeah, I think even during that time, maybe 1 or 2.
We were talking about it earlier before the podcast, like, the real growth of soccer in America really, probably didn't happen until Pele got here. And that's around, the 1970s?
Yeah.
And even still, like, it wasn't like U.S. soccer, like, then had a boom, it got better. Like, it was still
there's that sport over there.
Yeah, we have this. Oh, great. I'll go watch NFL.
Exactly.
So it's very hard to figure out, like, who he played for, things like that. We do know that he was the top scorer in 1946 for the Detroit Wolves in the North American Soccer League.
Yes.
He pretty much scored 15 goals in 8 games. And you can kind of see the trend of, even then, he was still having to deal with racism and abuse. He talks about how his wife at the time, after games, had to rub his legs down with like Vaseline and alcohol to take care of the stub marks that were left in his legs by opposing players. It was also reported that he was only getting paid $25 a game, while another player, I can't remember his name, Peter something, was getting paid $100 a game. And he scored, like, I think a third of the goals that Heron scored.
Exactly.
So it's not like, that's not something we haven't heard of before happening with black players, how they would not get paid their market value, things like that, what they really deserved. Yeah. So do you want to do the part about where he got scouted? Because this guy and how he got scouted is kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, this was at the time where, like, as you said, he was getting paid $25 a game at the Wolverines. And Glasgow Celtic was on a tour in the United States, and one of the scouts noticed him dominating on the field, just tearing it up on the pitch for the Wolves, and they gave him that offer. Like, they offered him a trial, a public trial, was it? Yeah, it was a public trial. So, I mean, just on that alone, and it goes to show you how in the world of sports, it's like sometimes you just right place, right time.
Yeah. And
the right person sees you, and that's your in.
Never give up on your dreams, kids.
No.
Never give up. Yeah, but I mean, like you said, he got right place, right time. He scored in his debut August 8th, 1951 in the League Cup against Morton, which when I saw the name, I was like, are they playing against the Advil Company? And then I realized, like, oh no, this is the name of the team. But the sad thing is he only played in 5 games in the first team, and he scored twice, however. And then he kind of played in the Celtics reserves. And you would think from that point on, like, all right, maybe his first year, he'd get another try. He come back second year.
Yeah.
No, Celtic cut him.
Yeah.
And that part alone kind of, like, really stuck out to me a lot because I'm like, all right, well, you got this guy from America. You brought him to Celtic. Why not give him another year or two?
At least?
Yeah, but then I had to realize, and this is like I asked you about, like, I had to realize the fact that the time era that we're dealing with, it is not like, even though, like you said, he was in the right place, right time to get scouted, it was wrong place, wrong time for him to play in.
Yeah.
Because of how he was as a player. Having the nicknames the Black Arrow, the Black Flash, it alludes to his elusiveness, pace, speed, skills, being tricky on the ball. And that's something that you equate to not only Celtics in that era, but also football in the 1950s.
Football in the 1950s was brutal. So it was about strength, power, physical aggression. And so
I think this was the era of the WM formation.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, like, even the newspaper articles around this time period, they said that he had all the support of the fans. Like, the fans loved him.
I mean, of course, that's always entertaining to watch.
They said, like, he didn't live up to the characteristics of what's needed in football around this time period, which marketed as he's too flashy, he doesn't do enough,
gets probably knocked off the ball too easily.
Yeah.
Probably got injured a lot, because even to this day, even today, where we like quickness, pace, agility, and flair, the fastest players are always the ones that get the most injured. When you look at players like Michael Owen, you look at players like Cristiano Ronaldo early on in his career. The fast players, they always the ones that are getting hurt. People are like, oh, they're made of glass. No, it's because they're moving so fast that you just stick a foot in there and something's getting clocked. Yeah. So,
yeah, it's true. I mean, they also talk about how he couldn't really overcome the player at the time, John McPhail. Mm-hmm. He could never really get over top of him, and then the more reaches we had to really do like some real digging to find this stuff out. Pretty much McPhail did not want to be challenged at all for his position. Like, it was like, no, this is my position. I don't want anyone challenging me for it. And pretty much the manager at that time, Jimmy McGrory,
basically kowtowed to him. This was a very rare situation where there was a man who was bigger than the club, and that was him.
Yeah.
And what he said goes.
Pretty much. It was just one of those things. And, I mean, let's also be real about it. We're talking about the 1950s. A black guy in Scotland. Are you really going to supplant this guy that's probably been here at the club for a long time?
Exactly.
Probably not. Like, it's not as forward-thinking as maybe we are as today. So he leaves Celtic, then he goes to Third Atlantic, and you would think there, all right, he's kind of improving at Celtic. He's going to start at Third Atlantic. Maybe this is the start of his big European career, being one of the first, not only, he's not American, so you can't really use that tagline, but one of the first, North American or Central American players to play over in Europe.
Exactly.
And there he doesn't even get the same start. And there's even less information there. The reason why it didn't work out, it's not like he fell out. He was pretty much reserved to League Cup and reserve team matches there. So what I'm starting to realize really around this time is there's not a lot of, I don't think people at that time really appreciate it, nor did they know about Gil Heron or what he was trying to do. And like we said, it was also wrong place, wrong time, because it's not like he's young.
Yeah. He was 29 when he went over there.
To Celtic. 29 already. So by the time he's at Third Lyric, he's what, 30? Maybe 31?
31, yeah.
And then he goes again to Kidderminster Heritors, and even less is known about him there. So it's like, was it his... Do you think his skill set just wasn't matched up for the teams he was playing for? Or was it just the case of these teams are like super duper rugged and stringent in what they want to do, and adding a player like that doesn't fit?
Well, my biggest confusion with it is a lot of the quick passing, quick movement, spreading the ball, using pace and speed over strength and just brutality originally comes from Scotland, which baffles me, because I know it's more so of a fictional docudrama, but if you watch The English Game, the main character is Scottish, and that's how we play in Scotland. We spread out, we pass the ball, we move quickly. And you would think that a player like Gil Heron would fit into a culture that brought that to the game. But I think you can say that maybe the English game kind of started to have an effect on Scotland, and they started to be worrying more about, can we get the biggest, strongest, baddest players rather than the quickest, fastest, and most agile.
Yeah, and I think also during that time period, like I said, I mean, he already had 2 knocks against him, really 3. He was already 29, had a bunch of games on him, from what we could probably tell. Was black, and he played in Scotland on a team this is Celtic.
Yeah.
Like, this is the team.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, around England around this time. You had Arsenal, you had Spurs, you had, your Manchester United, your Man Cities and stuff like that. And others clubs, your Leeds and things. But it wasn't on the level of what Celtic was.
Yeah.
Because
Celtic.
This is the team that eventually, 14 years later, goes on and wins the first European Cup for any British side, let alone English or Scottish. Like, they're the first team to ever do it.
Yeah, from the first team from the Big Island to pull it off.
So is that what he had to fight and overcome? And the sad part is, and I look at it as sad because he comes back to America after playing in Europe for like 3 or 4 years, and it's kind of just like it kind of fades into obscurity because he goes to work at a Ford assembly line. Doesn't really play soccer again. I mean, of course, he comes back and plays like semi-pro, but it's nothing on the levels of playing for Celtic and Kidderminster. But I kind of feel like he's forgotten in sense of a large part of the time. I mean, and granted, I guess that's the backside of being the first. Like, you're kind of always forgotten, if I want to say.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even doing the research on him, we were talking about it, like, there's a couple of articles out there, but he kind of all repeat the same thing. It was kind of like no one was really covering his story,
Yeah, no one.
And that's the unfortunate thing. I mean, this guy was nicknamed, the Babe Ruth of soccer, almost like the Jackie Robinson of soccer, for what he had to go through, what he was breaking through. Like, he was the first to play soccer professionally in America. He was the first. There's reportings of other blacks at Celtic, but they were in the reserve team.
Yeah, they were in the
He
reserve.
was the first African American to play professionally for Celtic. So yeah, where do you kind of lie at with Gil Heron?
I mean, I feel that Gil Heron is. I think he was, especially with regards to Celtic, you saw that he kind of took on the role of the token black guy because of how short-lived that was and because of how basically it was just, oh yeah, we're going to sign you and you're going to be the first black player to play for the first team at Celtic. And
so do you think it was more of they looked at him for what his skill potential was and was like, hey, maybe we can sign him? Or do you think it was more of this thing of like, they're buying more publicity stunt? Because
I think it seemed from what it seems like it's a combination of the two. You can see that if a scout is the one who's seeing him playing, I mean, they could have grabbed anybody, but they grabbed him because of his talent, because of what he could bring. And I think sometimes you get that, and nowadays you can call it like the FIFA mind of, oh, this player would fit in really good in this. Yes, in theory. And you look at Gil Heron and you see, in theory, his pace and quickness and agility and flash could bring something to this Glasgow Celtic game. But in practice, he's just getting knocked around. Yeah. But then again, you have that idea of we can be the ones to have the first black player at our club to play for the first team.
And you kind of already started to see remnants of that, around this time area as well. you start to have more countries start to kind of branch out.
Yeah.
Started to be like, oh, we can go to Africa, we can go to South America, we can go here. To start kind of picking players and things like that. And don't get me wrong, America was on the back end of all of this. Like, I don't think they were coming to America as kind of players because, one, we didn't really care about the game due to the lack of, like, true, like, scouting that was going on or true lack of, like, record keeper that was going on. But also at the same time, it's like, I look at Gil Heron as he is the pioneer that should never be forgotten for what he did.
Yeah.
You know, he was a true pioneer in the sense of the game. And, I mean, granted, you know, he didn't have the rags and riches. One thing that I find comfort in is the fact that he didn't have any bitterness about it. You know, he was kind of just like, I did everything I wanted to do. He still is, up to his death in 2008, he still was a Celtic fan. You know, he still followed the league, he still followed the team, things like that. And I mean, even his son, you know, Gil Scott Heron, that wrote the famous song, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised."
Yeah.
Helped write that. I mean, talks about how his dad loved Celtic and how
he still continued to follow Celtic and see how they were doing. But one thing that is very interesting with Gil Heron's story is the fact that he is still remembered in Glasgow. Yeah. Even though it was a very brief time, like any time Gil Scott Heron had a concert in Glasgow, everyone who'd show up to the concert was wearing their Celtic jersey. Yeah. And it was like a tradition. Like at the end of the day, if Gil Scott Heron is coming, we're wearing his dad's jersey. Yeah. And it showed that even though, yes, it was wrong place, wrong time, and that's one thing, of course, we can always see in
2020 vision.
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, we can see that it's wrong place, wrong time. But I think I do feel that a lot of Celtic fans at the time and shortly afterwards did realize that as well and did commend him for what he brought to the game. And they just thought it's just unfortunate that his style of play didn't fit what we were doing at that particular time.
Because I also think, like, if you bring him back, if he gets to Celtic when he's 22, 24, it's different.
Yes.
I think Celtic is more able to invest in him. But if he's 29...
He's on the tail end of his career.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to really be making it. You can understand why Celtic did have him. Mm-hmm. But, you know, hindsight is 2020. So, anything else for you, my man, before we wrap this up?
No, we talked about the fact that he scored 2 goals in the League Cup.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, so I mean that's. I mean he gave a contribution, and the only thing that I can give credit to with regards to his popularity in Celtic is maybe those 2 goals were memorable ones. You know?
He said he scored some memorable goals. Unfortunately. There's no footage to see.
Of course not, yeah.
So we could be talking about a tap-in. We could be talking about a 30-yard ball. Who knows?
Yeah, or anything in between.
Who knows? Also, real quick, before we wrap up, if you want to support more episodes of Can I Kick It, you can do so. The link will be provided down below. Click on that link. You can donate however you see fit. It really helps our show out to produce more episodes for you guys.
Not only more episodes, better quality episodes, better equipment, all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because this stuff ain't cheap.
It isn't.
On a teacher's salary and a coach's salary, stuff is not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with that being said, our resources for this episode is Gil Heron, played for Celtic, father of a musician by Frank Diapa of the Boston Globe. The Gil Heron Story by BBC Caribbean. The Obituary of Gil Heron, The Guardian. Gil Heron Soccer's Jackie Robinson. Stars and Stripes FC, Gil Heron. And Vice, Remembering Gil Heron. And Black Arrow, Remembering Gil Heron. So, as always, guys, leave a 5-star review. Like, view, subscribe, share with a friend. And like we said at the beginning of the podcast, we're not going away. We're just taking a little break. We'll still be dropping episodes here and there, but it won't be like 3 episodes all in one day.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We'll drop a few gems here and there for you guys. A few gifts here and there as we have a strangely crammed USL League One season that we're gonna have to keep track
of. So with that being said, as always, this is Elliot.
This is Shanir.
Keep us on the good side, guys. We'll holler at you later.